Good morning. Welcome to Two Peas in a Podcast. I am back. Sorry about not being able to join Dre last week. For those of you who are close enough to me, you do understand that there was a major thing going on in my family with my child. And so if you want to ever shut me totally down, it's to go through my kids. So God shut me down for a moment, but that was all right. She's doing much better. Still a lot of testing to be done. But just the fact that she's up around breathing with her children is a blessing. So thank God for that. Today's topic is going to be a little different, but I think it's something that definitely needs to be discussed today, especially from if in my perspective. I feel like, I kind of touch on all triangles of reptile keeping or the reptile hobby as an individual, starting with being doing this since the early 90s, as far as keeping, and then transitioning to breeding, because I do think that most people who are I call super keepers eventually comes to a point that they want to breed something. And for me, for a long time, that was a point that I never was going to come to. And I think that part of it is with some of the things that I see now, and some of the things that we're seeing now on all angles of reptile keeping, right? Good morning, Phil. Good morning, Ro. Good morning, Don D. Good morning, Stan. So on all angles. So I want to start from the first part of it that is different. I think that social media has brought some good and bad to reptile keeping, right? Many of us kept for years without even showing an animal on social media. And we spent those years learning about these individual animals that we keep, and learning the individual animals that we keep, we grew a intense passion and love for the animal. To me, that always has to be first. Always. You have to love the animal first. Then you get into the breeding side. And of course, for most of us, when we get into the breeding side, there is a side that is a financial benefit of it, and yes, we all want to be blessed by that side. Thank you to all my customers, we appreciate that. But if you ever purchase an animal for me, the first conversation we have is not about the animal and the price. It's about the animal and your ability to keep it, and your reptile goals. How does this animal fit in your household, be it a breeder or pet or whatever? We having those conversations before we even talk about genetics of the animal. You see that when you see the animal posted, for the most part, or if somebody who really don't know genetics, they get it. You know what I mean? They get it. But I am blessed so far to have customers who love the animals first. Even though, the social media presence of them are there, it's not because the presence is there to make money off the animals. It's there to show people how much they love these animals, what they do different with these animals, and things like that. That is the goal. Good morning, Kara Shay. And I think that so much, and y'all hear me use the term, the noise has become forefront when the animals should always be on the forefront. So if you care about the animals, right, then the conversation should be about the care of the animals, right? And the history of these animals. I think that's really important. Like, you cannot own an animal today and cancel the historians and the people who build the blocks for us to keep the animals that we have today. And what I mean by the animals today is that when I first started keeping animals, they were garter snakes and normal ball pythons for the most part. We have a billion morphs out here now. But it's those morphs come from a foundation of people who imported a bunch of animals and paired them up and figured it all out, pretty much. You wouldn't know this as to be a calico if nerd did not work that line so much to know that these are the different variations of calico that you can see properly, right? Or any other gene for that matter that we work with. Someone, if you're talking about the piebald, someone put that over. Wilbanks, is it Wilbanks? Yeah, Wilbanks. No. The first piebald was actually called P. Call. So, you know, we can cancel the person, but you can't cancel the history that person deposited because you're still breeding piebalds today. And if you're serious about it, somewhere you have to go back and read his history. Because as we continue to breed these animals, the mutations are going to continue to show themselves. The different strains and all of that is going to continue to show itself over the years, and you're going to have to tap into history to figure out what you're breeding and what you're working with, right? When it comes to keeping, when you purchase an animal, reptile keeping first should be purchase any animal that, number one, that you can afford to keep, that you can afford to feed, right? But if it's purchasing an animal that you know nothing about just because it looks good on social media, that's not the foundation of this. The foundation of this is there were people such as myself and many others for many, many years just keeping these animals in harmony, figuring them out. If we ventured into a new animal, we were studying that animal. But at the end of the day, it was the passion and the love behind it. And it's become more, even from a breeding side, like I can tell the difference in breeders when everything is just about the genetics of an animal and not about the animal itself. Because every animal I produce is beautiful, right? Because that's how I see animals. I don't care what it is. If you talk to me about a normal ball python and I produced it, it's beautiful. You know why? Because I produced it. It's beautiful. It is life goals. It's the beauty of what I wanted to do, right? And of course, if you produce something that's really, really nice, we want to show that off too, right? But it's not showing it for me anyway. It's not showing it off because it's a better quality animal than that normal. Because they, to me, and you hear me say this, a retic is a retic, a ball python is a ball python. They just have different colors and different genetics. And depending on how you want to use that animal is how you're going to value that animal. The value for a person like myself and many others who's doing this, the value starts with the fact that I liked that animal. We often talk, and you recently heard us talk, me and Sean talk about, and Phil know, like pastel, that's a whole, so many people shit on pastel as a genetic, but everybody use it. So if everybody use it, that single gene is still very important because it's being used in everybody's collection in one way, shape, or form. So getting back to the fact that the pastel is just a beautiful animal, and not the fact that there's so many of them that the quality of a single gene has gone down, is where we need to get back to. Right? Creating beautiful animals that for some people, fortunately, helps them build the hobby and build on creating more people to purchase these awesome animals. And it also, hey KT, hey Rock, it also brings you to a place where regardless of what you produce, it's valuable. So therefore that you're not adding on additional stress or concerns, or like some people stress themselves out about what they're producing, or some people don't value the animals enough that if they don't produce what they want, then the animal value is not there. Most of us are people who love the animals, period. I can tell some of the people in the chat, you guys was rocking normals before you rocked anything, right? For me, normals and spiders were my animals coming up in the 90s and then into the 2000s. Spiders still today is one of my most visually capturing animal. Like if I'm walking, and even like in Tinley, like even something such as big as Tinley, there were some amazing spider combos that just were eye catching, and I'm going to always love that gene. So if I want to keep a few spiders in my collection and produce some show quality spiders, because they also attract new keepers. And I think that's what we, want to talk a lot about this morning, is that it's not a bad thing that social media is here for the animals, because it's a good thing if it's used appropriately. Right? Someone made the comment to me, and for me, and I can just be honest, for those of you who follow all of my channels, like a Don D, Cara Shay, you notice that I do a lot on TikTok now. You know why? I am finding that the education desire is on TikTok. The desire to know about these strange animals are on TikTok. And for me as a breeder, my quality customers are coming from TikTok. The customers who see me love the animals the way that I love the animals, who want to own an animal from me because these animals seem like they are truly, truly loved. And then those individuals get those animals and they have this almost identical presence that I have with those animals. That's goals for me, because y'all know I stress about my animals regardless who custody is in. But to see them in custody of people who are as anal of loving them as I am is absolutely put me at ease. And it makes me want to create more and provide more for more customers. But we have to create those customers. And the new customers are not going to be buying $50,000 snakes, $45,000 snakes, $25,000 snakes. Damn it, they won't even be buying $500. I want y'all to think about the first snake y'all bought, whatever year it was. Whatever year it was. I think my first ball python from a store was like $5 or $10, maybe 15 after they did the little tick thing they used to do. But, it's the value of that animal has to be in the love for the animal and not what money that animal can make for you. Now, if you're doing both, fine. But I want breeders who are in it for the money to be focused also on the fact that what you're seeing right now, I believe, in the ball python community is just literally so many animals being produced. Beautiful animals, whether they're high dollar or whether they're, less expensive. Beautiful animals in a saturated market, and not enough people who know and want to own these animals are available in this economy to buy them. Right? Although animals are selling, like I said, I sold, people are selling, but it could be to a much greater extent and to a much educated base. So we're now creating scenarios where we're educating people and they are our customers. I think that is the way that definitely I want to go for a lot of my animals, to be honest, especially the ball pythons. But the reticulated pythons normally bring to me what I call experienced keepers anyway. I've never got someone who said, I don't own reptiles at all. Can I get a reticulated python? That hasn't happened for me yet. That hasn't happened. Most of the time it's people who have a whole bunch of other animals and they want to get a reticulated python, or people who already have them. And just, want to just upgrade the genetics, or just want to have a beautiful snake. And I'm all for that. I still like my normal, but I'm also not a breeder. I bought the only snake I like to make, so I didn't have to make it spot nose calico. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When I look at my breeding collection is built on what I wanted to do genetically, for sure. However, I always said my first 2 males were males that I already had, that I, started to plug. I mean, they were not normals, but they wasn't the 5 geners that I also have that's going to be producing, this year. There wasn't a bunch of triple recesses either. So I think that for most people, that's where it has to start. Like, I think it would be even crazy if you start breeding, and you don't know anything about it, and you start breeding these very expensive snakes, and you haven't mastered breeding, and you end up with all of these potentially wealthy snakes in an incubator dead. I can say that I attribute my years of keeping to my success with breeding. I have not had some of the horror incubation stories and things like that that others had. In their first season. I've had a perfect season. I've definitely have hatched out a animal who is deformed, which we named him Crooklyn, because Crooklyn eats and he poops. And Crooklyn is the most beautiful little kid on the block. So he is around, will always be around. So y'all see a lot of Crooklyn. But that, to me, because I love the animals, wasn't a defeat. It was, oh my God, this beautiful animal got the genetics that I wanted to have, but I'll never be able to sell or produce him or reproduce him. Because even though he has the kink in his neck, nothing in his clutch had it. So it's probably not genetic. It's probably just something that's, to him. But, I definitely don't want to take that chance to reproduce anything with him. But he'll be a pet forever. And he's a good eating pet. He's eating better than, the funny thing is, eating better than some of the other ones in his clutch that were absolutely fine. The other part that I think that is a big change is there is this intense need to compete in the hobby, whether it's from a breeding aspect or if it's, we talked about this, from a podcast aspect, which I ain't in it to compete with nobody, y'all. When I started doing reptiles and cocktails, if you go back, we talked to Q, who is the owner of the Bro Group. He was the first person I talked to about wanting to start this podcast. And it started off being where we were all just going to be out randomly at different little locations with our animals and, having cocktails, talking about our animals. That never came to fruition. So it was like, Nicole, you still got to do it in some way, shape, or form. I didn't even know all these other podcasts were out there. The thought was to start it to help people, to educate them to love animals the way that I do, right? That was the thought. I wanted people, and y'all heard me say this before, that when I used to work and I would tell people I'm going home to my snakes or something like that, as a professional, people look at me like I'm crazy, like, you own snakes? You don't look like a person who owns snakes. So I started this part. If you go to Reptiles and Cocktails, look at episodes 1 to 10, you see all different people. And you all see, that's one of the reasons why I don't like solicit the breeders that y'all see all the time. I think that every podcast has its pocket. So this pocket wasn't about bringing on, breeders, established breeders as much, yes, some from an educational perspective, like, some of the people that I have interviewed, such as Ozzy, such as Mike, such as Sean and things like that, like there is a aspect of it that is educational on the breeder side that I think those people are important. So you're going to always see pockets of me bringing in different breeders, having those different conversations as well, especially the old school breeders, because I think it's very important that people understand the platform laid out for them today to get them to where what all got you here. And I think you'll appreciate it a little bit more if you know the history. That's in anything. You know how to care for it a little bit more if you know the history, and that's in anything. So for me, I would like to see, and shout out to Rock, and he's not in the chat, but another person who does it a whole lot is Jeremy from one of the admins that I used to rock with from the Bro Group. It's important to take these animals safely in public, because I will say that, because some of the things I see is not safe. You can't have as much as I love my reticulated pythons, I will never put them on the ground and put your children around them. It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. Now, would I put them on the ground, let my grandchildren go around them? Yes, but let me tell you why. My grandkids know how to move with those individual animals, and so does the animal know how my grandkids move. When you put your animal outside or you're taking them around the public, everything that animal now does is on public display. So we do have to be careful on that presentation. I know it's cool showing people that, yes, you can touch them, but I am a fan that if you're going to let somebody's child touch especially one of these big animals, especially a berm over a retic. If you're going to let them, you need to place them in a place or in a way where that head is away from them kids. And it's not free for that snake to come back around and square up on somebody's child. So there is a responsible way to do this too. Good morning, Eric B. A responsible way to do it too, because it can also, although you're trying to educate, you can also educate somebody on why somebody might think that these animals are not safe to keep if you allow that behavior around that snake, because you're putting that snake in a stressful situation. And one thing that it takes time to understand, and this is species to species, how to determine if a snake is in fact stressed. Like a stress retic is always on the fly. You can tell. Always trying to just get away and normally get back to safety. Not necessarily because, they always trying to get to something they got no business getting to too. But typically a stress retic is going to try to get out of your hands, away from whatever, and back to their enclosure, home base. That's what they're going to try to do. Corn snakes, very similar too, as well. If you ever handle a corn snake, I always make the joke that corn snakes move a lot like retics. Even in their intelligence, corn snakes are smart as I don't know what, and they have strong food response. But the way that they move are very similar to big snakes, such as a retic. But they'll try to get back to home base too. A ball python may just hide. This might ball up. That's ball python, right? In fact, that's one of the things that I do with my mean little babies. I always just put my hand over them and make them ball up. Like, I don't care how many they are, that's what I'm gonna do, and they'll ball up. So depending on the animal, a green tree in defense is not trying to get back to home base. It's trying to get at you. You know what I'm saying? So you have to know these different nuances in order to figure out and determine, is my animal even comfortable with this situation? Temperatures. I see people who educate and they'll take their temperatures out, their snakes out in horrid temperatures. Your snakes should not be out in 90-degree weather for 2 hours. They just shouldn't. They have no way of cooling themselves down, and they're going to need to, especially, again, retics are like big people. They don't want no heat all on them. They want some air. They need air. They need some AC to cool it down. Retics typically like to be cooler. So knowing that about your animals, you can leave a retic in a 90-degree weather and bringing them around other people's children. You can get a very disgruntled retic really quick, and it can be taken out on that person's child, only because the snake is hot and I'm irritated and I don't like all of these touchy-feely things I'm feeling right now. So we have to be cautious about that too. So I always tell people that even though before you go out to educate, which is something that I did before even social media, that was what I did. I used to take out the little animals and, see, if you're going to do that, you have to understand how to engage with those animals, with other people. Your animal with you is not necessarily going to be the same way with other people. And I'm very funny with animals that normally seeing people who are above height, all of a sudden seeing people at height around them, because you don't know if in that circumstances if they're going to take the time to try to figure it all out. Like, am I going to try to figure it out that this is a child and not a moving rabbit, because it's at my eye level. So those are things that we have to be conscious of. I know a lot of people think it's cool to take their animals out into restaurants and stores and stuff like that. No. The other part of it is that when I say, are we killing the hobby, you cannot force anything on people. And I think when you're bringing your animals into, and I don't care if it's a snake or like a dog or whatever, when you bring your animal into a restaurant and things like that, it for the sole purpose of, I want to be seen, because there are quite a few people out there like that, that becomes an issue, because you're now forcing these animals in an atmosphere where people have, I woke up this morning, I'm going to Walmart, the last thing I'm going to see in Walmart is a snake. You know what I'm saying? And then the person goes to Walmart. You're not transitioning that person into a good life when it comes to
Good morning.
Keepers. Good morning. How they view us as reptile keepers when you do that. When you're taking your animals and you're saying, hey, here we go. I am now going to Home Depot because I gotta go buy wood for the snake. And because I'm buying wood for the snake is not a child. It's not a child, it's a snake. And Home Depot, even when I think about the lumber area, it's not the best place for a snake. Another thing, a lot of times you're seeing on people commented that these new breeders don't love the animals because they do X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna be honest. If you smoke anything around your reptile, you don't love your reptile as much as you say you do. And people who keep them, as long as I have, know that. Like you are fooling with the respiratory system of a reptile. Like your reptile cannot inhale and exhale. Your cigarette smoke. It can't. If I'm around you, the secondhand smoke, I can blow out your weed smoke, whatever it is. And that is another thing that I think that presentation of how we say we care about our animals and then we put our animals in these situations publicly that is publicly not safe is a bad perception on our animal keeping. Dre, can you turn your phone square away or you can't in the car? Is this my OCD? You look little. There you go. Boom, bam. We equal. We equal. We equal. You already dropped off baby girl or she's still in the car seat?
No, I literally just pulled out the parking lot.
Okay. All right. So Dre, you want to just did you hear anything or did you just jump in?
Yeah, I just jumped in. I was dealing with her. But to what you just said, like the whole smoking, there's a lot of reptile keepers that do that. It bothers the shit out of me. Me personally, and I'm saying this as a content creator, I feel like social media definitely has played a big role in, I'm not going to say ruining the reptile community, but it's definitely brought a lot of negativity. Not social media as a whole, but what people do on social media has definitely brought in a lot of negativity to our hobby because everybody posts everything, and it's why. So not only does the general society view snakes in a negative way, but when we post certain things, i.e., live feeding videos, and then we're also celebrating the death of other animals, and then we're just doing stupid things for clout, for views, for numbers, things that we know stress out and agitate our animals. It just goes against everything that the reptile community is supposed to stand for. So I feel like, yeah, stuff like that only hurts us in the long run versus help us. But on the flip side, I mean, not everything is negative, but people only focus on the negative, so it sucks.
Yep. And then too, what Bosa just said, that's another thing. Bosa, I tell you, I do not touch my adult retics if I've been drinking at all. And not because necessarily I'll get drunk to the point that I could mishandle them. I think they sense it. I think they smell it. I can't prove it. I don't know. I think they can sense it. They'll get very leery of a person consumed alcohol. I've noticed that. Not that they won't engage with me, but it's not the same. So one of the things that I won't do at all, I will never feed if I've been drinking. Because that on point, that small delay can cause you to be in a bad situation, especially with the sperm. So I don't do that either. But I think too is when people see those types of things, they don't take us serious as people. Like, where do you go in a zoo and see the zookeeper with the bears drinking and smoking? You know what I'm saying? That's just not
Right.
how you're going to effectively educate about these animals. And I've said, like, you'll even hear me say, somebody else say, if we on a live or something like that, can you go get the tegus? No, I'm not getting the tegus right now because of XYZ. If it's not in a situation where I know it's ideal to put them in front of a camera and a light, because that's something else that we don't think about. All snakes don't like. Take each one of your animals individually and put a camera in front of them and see how all of them react differently. All snakes don't like that. The camera being in their face like that with those lights. So, hey, Joey D, good morning. So it's important to make sure that we're not doing that without watching the stress and how the animal is reacting to that. I see it and I'm watching lives. I can tell you right now on TikTok, there is a live that I watch because it's with venomous, and I think the person for 80% of the time appears to be safe handling, but there's another 20% of the time where I feel so bad for the animal. The animal is clearly stressed out. This camera is right here. And just so we can get a shot of the animal opening its mouth or something like that, we allow the animal to get that stress. That's no different than us saying, the people who purposely stress the animal out. It's no different. You can watch that level of stress in your animal. So I think that the hobby is growing. So that's the thing. Is one thing is a fact. The hobby is growing. Is it growing with the same people who used to keep? No. Like we're having younger people coming in here, people who are not as responsible with animals. So that educational piece is very important. Um, and then you have them coming in this, I keep saying this old school, new school battle. Like it's like an old battle out here. And you got them coming in that time. And then some people, I don't want to be here for that because I came here because I already have social anxiety. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be careful of how we present a lot of all of that as well. The one thing that we all must do is educate. I will agree. Anybody who says that we need to get back to the education, the responsible education of these animals, whether it's on a small scale or it's on a new scale. And that's what we use. I use TikTok the most for. They use TikTok the most for is education, not showing off animals. There are days that I get on TikTok and not show an animal for an hour until somebody asks to see an animal because the whole purpose of being there is education when it comes to the general education of why we keep, who the keepers are. And a lot of times people got a lot of different questions. And I think it's important to focus on those questions and answer them before we even show the animals, right? Um, there are certain times, certain things that can happen, like live. I thought it was absolutely hysterical. The cow was in shed, and I said to Sid, I don't know if you saw it, Dre. I'm not gonna get her because she's in shed, and not because my Callan shared she's still gonna be very chill, but my risk is, oh my God, is she gonna be stressed? And a sign that she was is when she urinated. Um,
Bruh.
but it was a good time to show people the difference between liquid urine and urate. So it was a good educational piece as well because people was like,
Yeah,
"It's pooping." No, that's not poop. It's urates, and explaining what urates and how they.
that's funny. The last live I did last Saturday, my cow did the same thing, and I talked about calcified urine and urates and the differences between it. She got it all over my pants, but everything was on camera. That is funny.
Yes. So it's and then those type of things are things that people need to like. The girl asked, she was like, "Oh my God, do it stink? The pee don't stink to me. Stink is the poop. Like it's poop is horrid. Especially depending on what you're feeding them. That's why I feed rabbits, and I hate feeding guinea pigs, but I do feed rabbits and guinea pigs to give them a very diet. But the guinea pig excretion smells worse, right? So people need to know that before they keep it, because you got some people who don't like poop, and so all of a sudden they think this pretty snake poops out like a ball python, like little balls, and then this thing grow up and it start having these massive poops and peas, and then all of a sudden I don't want the animal and I'm releasing it to the wild. Big
Right.
problem.
So I tell people, if you're not, I will literally pull out a turd and show them, like, if you can't handle this, you don't need this snake. It may be graphic to some people, but this is the reality of what big snake keepers deal with. And your snakes are way bigger than mine. My blood python alone can put some people to shame. I'll be like, bro. But yeah. My big yellow retic Django last week, he laid like three, four logs in there. I'm like, bro, what's going on? Bro? Like, but the life we chose.
Right. And it's the reality of it. And it's the things that you have to, as for me, as a person who's selling these animals, Do you know? That's my first question. And I don't mean to offend anybody, but when you inquire with me, I just remind everybody, do you know that this is a articulated python? This is the longest snake, blah, blah, blah. And then they come back, yeah, I own one or whatever. Okay, great. I like to see your interactions with them, and people have no problem. Like I can tell, like people who are about it because they have no problem with sharing any of that with me. Here's my IG, blah, 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 blah. And you get to see how they are with their animals. And for me, like it's creating a whole community amongst my people who have purchased from me, and my sales is coming from the advertising of their snakes. Like I don't even know what's happening. People are, messaging me. Like Dre has sent a couple people my way. There's people who are messaging me because they saw somebody's snakes and they'll give me the name of the snakes. And fortunately, I know who the keeper is because they share the name of the snakes with me, so I know who got this one and who got that one. That's the fun part. I will never, ever, ever like breeding so much that I do not continue my love for what I do. And I know when something is too much, like we talked about increasing and building up so we can actually sell rats and rodents. I don't want to clean rats and rodents. So Slim said he wouldn't mind. Okay, that's you want to make that your thing? Go ahead, build them up, and let's go ahead and do that. I know for me, I like cleaning snakes. The little bit of rats and rodents and ASFs that I have to clean now, it's okay. But if I had to do that 200 times, 100 times, because I got 100 bins now or 50 bins now, I don't know if I would enjoy it. But my husband said, that's something that he'll be willing to do. Then, we can make that his thing, right? But also knowing when you're taking on too much. That's another thing, because I think that sometimes it's not a good look when you see people with all of these wonderful animals and then the next week you hear that this person is getting rid of all of them animals. So the person who's been following that individual is thinking, what the fuck? Like y'all, educate me and bring me into this, and this person wasn't all into it themselves. Because that's what it comes down to. Because I can't imagine getting rid of one, let alone getting rid of them all. So.
Or some people thinking it's a competition, trying to keep up with others and buying certain reptiles quicker than they need to. That's honestly how some people go broke. You spend this much amount on money on a snake, but then you set up a GoFundMe because you can't afford something. I'm sorry, but I'm not funding your life because you made a bad decision.
Right. I mean, that's true too. And that happens a lot in social, I think in more of the groups that we are no longer in the social media groups, not necessarily the people, not the content creator type of settings or the, podcast and stuff. It happens more in the settings of like, I'm in this board group and I want to have different boards to post. I hardly ever post in retic groups, like my animals.
I just barely post in Facebook groups, period. If I post my animals, they on my page. I'm not about to go in them groups. There ain't no point.
It's very rare that you'll see them posted in any group. But I have quite a few. And there are times that I'll pull out an animal and people forget that I have. Like, dang, I forgot you bought that and this and this. Because again, for me, the social media piece is very strategic. Especially when we do videos. Like, I think that most of my videos on my YouTube are going to be educational. The breeding ones are more of kind of taking you along my way of what I'm learning and breeding and things like that. But the animal keeping part are all educational. It's something to show you, something to tell you differently, something to let you know how we do it here, how we transition an animal from a 116 quart tub to straight to an 8-footer or something like that. That's what my YouTube is about. Good morning, Elias.
Or how we transition from live to frozen.
Yes.
What enclosures work best. Humidity, temperature gradients, things that actually matter. Like, there's so many YouTube videos I see people make about reptiles, and it's just like, I get what you're trying to do, but what's the point? So it's like when you focus in, I think people focus so much on trying to be different that they stray away from what we actually should be doing, and that's educating. So me personally, I always try to keep it about the reptiles. Yes, you're gonna see my face, you're gonna see me holding a snake, but at the end of the day, the reptiles are always gonna be the focal point. So as long as I'm focusing on that, everything about them, that's it. I'm literally just caring for them and sharing it with y'all, but everything is about the reptile.
Absolutely. And I think too, and Dre, I talk about that because, like, even when I compare, like, well, I don't say compare, but one of the things that I learned from you is to reduce the time of those videos, right? So, like, the 7 to 10 minute videos are way better than the 20-minute videos.
Facts. And
I
it's a
think,
lot more work. The only time I'll do a video that long is if I go to an expo and I'm trying to get everything. Other than that, no, because your click rate goes down. There's nobody wants to sit there and watch you like talk in the same position because they're gonna be like, okay, this shit's boring. But if you go to Tinley or just like a big expo, you can get away with that because there's so much to see. So my average video duration is like between 7 to 10 minutes.
yeah. Which was hard for me to, I mean, that's like this year you can see that I really down because there's just so much that I want to put in. But
Hmm.
I do find like I enjoy doing the videos more because the editing piece is not as horrible. And again, stick to the fact, try to pick that one topic and stick to that one topic so that the education piece is out there. The other thing where we have to do better at is sharing. Hey, Chris, sharing the knowledge and the information that we have as
Yep.
individuals. And I'm not talking about, like, some people think you don't have to be a Nicole who's been keeping it for 30 years. You can talk about your 5 year experience, right? With a specific animal. You know, when you come into this hobby and your time in the hobby is very important. So your 5 years could be just as important or more important than my 30 plus years, right? Because so much has evolved in the husbandry of animals over the time. Let's say your 5 year piece could be the piece where we all figured out that retics was not man eaters, or or you didn't have to get bit to own one. You know what I'm saying? That could be your 5 year piece.
Right.
Your 5 year piece could be that recognizing that it's not a good idea to keep multiple species of animals for you. You know, for me, it's a great idea because it paces out my care schedules as well. Like my care for my lizards is it's no way as great as my care for the hatchlings because my lizards could go 4 days while I'm on vacation, 5 days I'm on vacation. All they need is a good water, filtered water, and food at least once in that little 5 day, and they good. They're not gonna complain. You know, Larry gonna be hungry when I get back, but he's gonna be good. Um, your snakes rely on you for water. You know, it's
Yep.
not accessible to them like it is accessible to the lizards. So for me, keeping multiple species is actually better. My boas don't need the attention that my retics need. Do I give them attention? Yes. Do they want a little, like my Caicos? Caicos like might want more attention than most of the boas. So yes, he gets it. But naturally and mostly, like, the boas are more like the green tree. Like they good. They'll come to the glass seat and they good. Where the retics is like, open the door, let's roll, let's, have a great day. What we doing, what you doing, what you cooking. They all into all of that. The boas are not. Even if I let the boas out on the floor, like I let the retics, the boas are typically doing their own thing, find something to climb up on, and that's where they want to be, watching what you're doing from the climb up. So multiple species works great for me. I couldn't imagine like being a Chris and breeding multiple species. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I do the balls and retics and I do boas, but Chris breeds a little bit of everything. Your knowledge has to be on point to
Hmm.
do that. And that wouldn't be for everybody. That's for someone who's been keeping all kinds of animals like he has. Um, Good morning, Sean. You should have came and did this with me today. This is out. What's the day? Are you still here next Monday? What's the day? What's today's date? Nope, that's the day you leave. Oh man. All right. I'll find another day. I forgot Sean to see if like Sean could have came and we could have did two peas in the podcast today. Um, so yeah, so the other piece that I think that is, and you're hearing a lot of people talk about it, is just the overall quote unquote drama. And I do think that that part comes in on the backside because some things will be happening and I don't have no clue that's happening. Thank you very much. But being in the podcast and or the creator world, a lot of it, is happening. Like I was totally when I was interviewing Sean, like blown that life was just, the things he experienced was just that upsetting for him. And I'm sitting here laughing and he literally had tears in his eyes. So I'm laughing because to me, the shit ain't that serious. And on the flip side, it was that serious, to a person who built their foundation on what they do, loving the animals and creating some beautiful animals. So I think that we also have to be conscious of some people's stress levels in this, if that makes sense. Where are other people in with all of this content and everything? Because we don't want to lose people in the hobby because of the ugliness, right? We don't want to keep people from, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do a channel. I don't want to do this because of X, Y, and Z. You're hearing veterans say that. People who have a ball of knowledge. You have, I saw a post. I don't know if y'all saw it from Ralph Davis the other day on Facebook. Pretty much said, this is the history that none of you big headed YouTubers or YouTube scientists want to hear, but this is the history that you need to know. Shut the fuck up and listen. Pretty much is what it said. That's how I interpret it. It's not what it said. He didn't use none of them words, but that's what it said. But if you want to go read it yourself, Google Ralph Davis post that he posted last week, and then pretty much in his post, he was right. He was right. So yeah, so you did, Sean. Just like the dates that's me, like I said, the last couple of weeks, Dre would tell you. I've been, like I told you, I text you what I've been dealing with, and I lost all focus. But yes, we'll make it happen this week. Maybe we'll do something down the harbor or something.
Yeah, yeah. It had to be something serious if she left me in charge of the podcast by myself last week.
And I was, the funny thing is that I have never missed any one of those podcasts, but it was one situation, y'all, where my mind couldn't even come here to press start. It just wasn't going to happen. Like, so it just wasn't going to happen. That's all. Because I'm glad to be smiling today. But
We held it down, and we glad you're smiling too.
Thank you. And I even because I couldn't even watch the whole thing because I was sitting in the ICU. So when I was able to tap in and hear somebody and say hi. So I appreciate everybody supporting and everything like that because things happen. I get it. So let's see. Yeah, so the educational piece. So I challenge everybody to reach out into your community and determine what can you do, or in your own home. I mean, if I'm being honest, like we're not people who invite people in their home a lot. I mean, it's just hood rules. I don't know. We're more comfortable with knowing people not knowing how our house is and how it's set up. It protects you if someone tries to come in. They don't know how it's set up and stuff like that. And my husband comes from a whole different part of the streets than I do, so his security levels are on 10. So, but you can do it at schools, like my granddaughter. People always asking, you can do it on Zoom today. You can use Zoom today. What is saying? Yeah, I'm home, girl. Y'all tell Nicole link and light me over. Let's work. Sean, we definitely will. Definitely will. So I think that also one of the things that we should use the YouTube channels more, and this is me too. I did a lot last year, but I got to get back to it this year. Is taking the animals out safely recording and documenting that for the public, because then you get to see, because one, I don't know who it, I don't know. And maybe it could have been the beginning of Tim's video. It was the beginning of Rocks. I can't remember which one. It might have been Tim's. And the kid was going down to touch the snake, and they yelling to their mother, who was standing off, like, Mom, come here. I'm touching it. I'm touching it. It was so cool. And for other people to see that excitement, who thinks that that experience would be totally different, definitely an opportunity for people to, to see how amazing that first experience could be. Because I don't even think people can imagine that initial experience being that amazing until y'all see it. Like when you put that snake in somebody's hand for the first time, and they right there before you, everything they thought changes. That's what I like about doing the shows. The shows I love. Yes, it's great to sell animals, but it's better to be able to engage real time with people who are there only because they scared as crap of the animals we keep, but the animals are now in front of them, and you encourage them to give it a try.
Yep. So I'm excited for Daytona in about a couple weeks.
Yep.
Super excited. My first time going, so I can't wait for that.
I thought you went before.
My first time going to I mean, I've been to Daytona. I've been to Florida, but I haven't been to the
So,
expo. I've
gotcha.
never, yeah, been to the expo, so I'm excited. So
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, I guess it was maybe Tim, and I know Rock did it too. Like I said, a lot of people do it, and a lot of people do it but don't document it. I just think that we should get more into document it, and that's what we should actually be posting. Get less from, like, out of all the animals I have, no one has ever seen me talk about or compare my animals to somebody else's.
hmm
Never. And I got some shit, okay, but no one has ever seen me.
listen, I say the same thing. In my head, I got I got the most beautiful animals in the world. And
Yeah.
if you don't feel like that, then I don't know. But I feel like even I get so much flack for the anaconda. People are like, why don't you get rid of her? Well, number one, I didn't get her to get rid of her. I understand that she can bite and she does bite, but that's part of the process, is building that bond with her to get her to trust me to the point where she doesn't. And the last few times I've taken her out, I've had no issues. She even went up around my neck, didn't bite. I mean, it was unintentional, but I let her just chill there for a minute, and she did great. So building that bond, that trust, I'm trusting her more. She trusted me more, and it's going very well. But again, to me, you can't tell me shit about my animals. I don't care what you look. I don't care if it's a king snake, rat snake, nothing. I'm like, shoot, nobody got this. Nobody got this.
And then I think too is when we do that, the reason why we don't like it, you can't find a video where I say this is a golden child cow. Only XYZ amount of people had this at the time that I got it or whatever. Because you can make somebody who's coming in who just wants that normal to start
Mm,
feel like their part of it in the education is not important. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody in here we make the joke, you are a very exceptional person because you keep reptiles. You are already amongst the rare. We should not be isolating or making people feel less of in any
hmm
form.
Facts.
Not something that me and Dre do anyway. When it comes, first of all, I always say that everybody life's walk is different, right? And I just feel like that which path you go on has a lot to do how you treat people along the way. I truly believe that. The only good parts that y'all get of me is because I believe in karma. I believe it. Karma keeps me from doing a lot, right? But I do think that when it comes to people who are building their animal knowledge and things like that, it was better for us when we had a book back in the day, when we just picked up a book and read, than it is for those of you who have to get on social media and deal with all these people's opinions. deal with everybody's perception of one another, deal with, you know, what the economy is doing. The economy is, it doesn't bother me. If I don't sell anything on Wolf Market, I'm good. If I do, I'm better. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it was getting into this, breeding amazing animals to produce for other people to also have amazing animals that I love and I can watch them grow. Um,
Mm.
it wasn't just about the benefit. You know what I'm saying? I think that the people who've already made the millions and millions off of ball python breeding, those are those people. They're going to always be those people. I think it's going to be hard for anybody else to do that per se, but there's definitely still a market for education. And don't get me wrong, I think that there are people who are educating, and you know, like if you have a Patreon, if you have a subscription pool, or like for this channel, if you're a member of this channel, there are perks for the members, but it's also perks for us. You're building your own little community. I was telling uh Megan that I actually was, that's how my, you know, the Patreon started. Like, you know, I get messages all the time in the middle of the night, and people will say, hey, can you do this XYZ? Like, to keep a log of things that you can just go through, and you know, a community of people who, like for me, keep my specific animals. That's the goal, you know. But for others, you know, it's financially driven. And if you're building that only for the financial purposes, then that's not cool. Now, if you're building it because the financials help you to continue to educate, that's amazing. And that's what people should, you know, how people should view Patreons and things like that. Like the two that I'm in, I'm hardly ever active in the chats, but I know that when I want to get information, I can get it. I can go right in that chat and get it. So it's a value to me. And I think that anybody who takes their time to give you, you know, their time. Time is it costs, and I think that those are legit things, you know, that you should consider. Um, that's what is going on to keep them from more bans. Let people see there's nothing to fear. Absolutely. Because then you get the more of the common people to understand that, right? And those are the people who actually makes a difference.
And
It's
that's another thing. No matter how non-reptile keepers feel about us, they're always going to watch what we're doing. So that's why I think doing the positive stuff and getting people to understand, like, these animals are not monsters, these animals are not killers. Y'all literally are fearing something just because y'all are misinformed about it. We both know on TikTok there are so many people that jump in the comments, oh, I don't even like reptiles, but you're still in the live, so I'm just going to keep educating you as long as you're here. And I think that's more so where the focus needs to be at. But everybody want them views. Everybody want to do stuff for clout. Everybody is willing to risk the overall health of their animal to make them more popular. And I'm just, no, I'm cool. It ain't worth it.
agreed, agreed. Um, and then I think that again, utilizing the social media sources to educate more on the animals is where the goal should be.
Hmm.
Period. That's where the goal should be. And if we all can do that in one way, shape, or form, like I know, Dre, we do our thing. You know, that's where if you ask me, that comes first. But I think that if we get more of the younger generation, because I'll say it over again, when we die off, there is not the same level of kids loving these animals the way that we do. Like you do start to see that. You start to see the younger generation, because they're not nature born. They're techie driven kids today. So it's not like they're outside playing and you know they're catching worms. Oh, and now I want to see how a garter snake feel. Oh, now I want to see how a ball python. It's not happening. Um, so we have to go to them because they're not coming to us like we were. We grew up, we were kids out in nature, So what we saw in nature intrigued us. We saw a little lizard that made us want to see a Komodo.
Mm.
Saw a little turtle that made us want to see a whole alligator or a whole snapping turtle. You know what I mean? Like, so those were the things that we saw. How many parents? Now, I can tell you that we still are very much nature driven over here, but how many parents do you see in the woods hiking or fishing or nature swimming out, with their kids? You don't see a lot of that no more. And
Mm.
it's not the parents' fault, but per se, I think a lot of it's just what the kids are into. But you still got to force them into that part of nature, survival, because that's what they need. Survival skills. You never know when your child might end up on a hiking trip and end up one of the ones stranded in the woods, and then they have no survival skills. Their iPad, their iPhone, none of that's working up the mountain. It's funny. Remember, we couldn't go from one grade to the next without learning how to use a compass. Our kids rely totally on GPS and a navigation system to get from one point A to B, like literally. And that's frightening. It's frightening. And technology are making them dumber and dumber. It's to a point now where our kids don't use their brains for anything. Um, And that's frightening because the only thing that keeps you surviving in the wilderness is your ability to utilize your brain to see past your current circumstances and get creative and innovative and how to get past your current circumstance. And our kids don't have those skills. That the way that they figure out stuff now. I listened to my daggone granddaughter do it the other day. Siri, and then tell Siri, what is the weather? Is it a good swimming day? And Siri said the weather in Washington, D.C. is 84 degrees. This may not be a good
So,
swimming day.
listen, I don't see how we used to survive off of MapQuest. Just directions on paper.
I was getting ready to say, it wasn't even like, for me, it was go to the 7-Eleven, get a map. We're going from here to here, and you follow I-95. If you had to get on Route 1, you follow where, you circle where Route 1 connected, and that's like
Mm.
all of that. Our kids wouldn't be able to do that. Use the compass. I challenge people ask them what are the 4 points on a compass. Kids wouldn't know it. Kids wouldn't know it.
Good times. Takes me back to my Boy Scout days.
We was talking about that last night. We was watching a movie where the couple actually ended up going the wrong way. The husband took her where he used to always go camping. He being a man, didn't want to say they made the wrong turn. She noticed that there was bear beds and stuff like that. So anyway, they end out there with bears and shit. And Slim was like, see, that's where Boy Scouts came into play. I said, yes, but Girl Scouts came to play and Brownies. I said, but one thing that we did when we went to Camp Concern, our parents had a box. You can check, do you want to sleep in a tent or do you want to sleep in a cabin? I was the cabin girl. I wasn't up there. I wasn't out there with bears sleeping in the tent, so I wouldn't have been out there, period.
Give me somewhere dark and quiet. I don't care where it's at. I'm going to sleep.
Yeah,
I've slept in the cabin. I've slept in the tent, and I both nights I got some sleep, so it don't matter.
sleeping in no tent in somebody's woods. I'll sleep in a tent in the backyard, but I'm not sleeping in a tent in somebody's woods. But that's something, like I said, my husband always like, come on, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. I do it in an RV. I'm not doing it where bears can just come in, scratch the tent open, and do whatever. No, that's not going to happen. It's real. It's real. Give our kids an old school map and see how far they get. Exactly. Up the street probably would be a struggle. Up the street. Strictly educational stuff is tough to build up, but well worth the patience. I agree. I agree. Yep. So that's our show for today. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Duh. We almost forgot. I have my scripture of what is one of hope. Romans 15:13 for Brian Barchek, who he may be feeling not so happy about losing his hair and things like that. And I get that being the cancer patient. But Brian Barchek looked damn good for somebody who's dealing with the type of cancer. If y'all knew anyone who is dealing with pancreatic cancer, he's doing amazing. So shout out to Bryant, hair and all, you're doing amazing. So Romans 15:13, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. So when all faith is gone, there's still hope. And when all hope is gone, there is faith. Keep pushing, Brian. Everybody keep pushing in through your week. Have an amazing week. Educate somebody this week. Share that education this week. And let's just make, we can't change the world, but we can change and make small deposits to make it better. That's the same thing we're going to do with the reptile community. We can't change it, but we can make small deposits to make it better. We all can hold ourselves accountable to doing that. All right. All right. Everybody have an amazing one.
Have a great week.